there, the fact that these events have been cancelled, the fact that the police have said that they cannot hold these right now, and they've said that there is intel inputs indicating a possible attack, all indicate that there is an unwillingness on the part of the establishment and administration to address it.
Thank you, Gauri, for having me on your program. And I fully agree with Terry's sentiment and assessment. And what is important to underline here is that this cancellation has happened on the assessment of Peel Police. That means, in their own assessment, they are not able to provide security to such an event, which means, in some sense, the state is, shall we say, surrendering to such vociferous movements which are threatening other citizens of Canada or other guests in Canada who Canadian police says we cannot provide security to. And I think that's not a good assessment of what the world thinks of Canada in that sense. And second point, where I will slightly vary from what Terry was mentioning in terms of autonomy of local police, I think Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is still the Prime Minister of Canada, and I'm sure his sort of inclinations on various issues, if not directly instruct, definitely encourage a certain behavior on the ground in various parts of
Then, how
Canada,
do we
including.
then, Professor Singh, how do we then ensure that Indians are safe in Canada?
I think we should first respect the sovereignty of Canada and expect that Canadian agencies would ensure that both their citizens, including those of Indian origin, and of course various visitors and people who are on permanent resident in Canada, are provided security, which is the responsibility of the state, Canadian state. And in case this continues to be the situation where the local police is saying we cannot provide protection to the threats that you people face inside Canada, and then I think one has to think beyond what Canada can do in terms of either offering any help that Canada might need in ensuring law and order in their own country, or building certain amount of international collective assessment of how these things should be tackled. And Gauri, if you allow me, there used to be a assessment of Quebec movement, which often talks about secession from Canada. And because it will break Canada into two separate parts, this was sometimes referred as Pakistanization of Canada in that sense. And what you're seeing one after another videos on the ground now really reminds me of that kind of assessment of several scholars who used to talk about Pakistanization of Canada. I hope so many of friends in Canada live, and as you mentioned, I was teaching for a year in University of British Columbia. I hope peace comes back and sanity comes back, and the signal has to come from the apex. I think signal has to
Right.
come from Justin Trudeau.
Exactly. Very quickly, sir, I'm running out of time, which is that what is it that some of these politicians can do and must do in the wake of what's happening?
I think they should go for elections and people will speak. And I want to underline for your viewers, Terry on with us here commenting on the situation is not an exception. Canadian media increasingly is now becoming extremely critical. His own ministers, members of parliament, general public is getting disgruntled with this entire exercise. And most of people who are suffering in such a situation are Sikhs themselves. And large number of pensioners are Sikhs there. So I think the best the Canadian politicians can do is ensure that they call for elections as soon as possible, which will make sure that Justin Trudeau is pushed into history and we have a new government in place and we can restart the relationship with Canada again.
All right. Thanks much, Professor Singh. And